Was Ensol any good?
It certainly worked with the treatment of cancer in white mice, where we would inject the mouse with cancer-bearing cells, and that would develop a cancer, and then followed up with the injection of this Ensol stuff. And we got some pretty positive results on that on a laboratory basis. It looked very promising, the results that we were getting, both on white mice and on some of the patients that were in for treatment.
Maybe you could say, out of say 300 and some odd patients, 47% died, but the 53% were still alive today. I mean, that was a big percentage of 47%, or 35, I'm not sure what it was, but 47% died and 53 are still walking around 3, 4, 5, 10 years later. And he had reports 10 years later on the people who
we could conclude that we had reasonable results with the product, but not altogether predictable, as this happens with many treatments for cancer. Today, I believe that it is very hard to find a cancer treatment that is consistent whenever it is used. The one thing possibly that wasn't mentioned in Kathy's book was the theory that we were working on, and that was that the product contained an antigen, which when administered to the patient set up antibodies to malignant tissue. So now this antigen-antibody idea was around for a long time, of course, and it's used in many control of many diseases, starting off maybe with smallpox. So our work progressed along, and at the time I was working on this, we were beginning to become focused on the DNA, or the component of the malignant cells, but that was really a new science back in the 30s and 40s, when there was not very much known at that time concerning genetics.
Well, I'm from Ottawa, and my mother grew up in Kingston, and she was a lifelong friend of Dr. Connell's wife. And a matter of fact, she knew Henry very well because they all grew up together. And I was 16, and it was a fall, and we had a big house in Ottawa. Matter of fact, we had the biggest house of all my friends, and I wanted to have a party. And so I approached my mom, and I told her I wanted to have this party and get all these kids in and have a blast. And she broke down in tears, and I couldn't understand what was going on. And then she informed me that she'd been up to Kingston, and she'd been diagnosed by Dr. Bingham up in Kingston that she had bone cancer in her left leg, and that she was going to have to go up, and probably the doctor was recommending that they do amputation. And my mother is stubborn and Irish, and she just said, there's no way I'm going to walk around with one leg. Well, it would meant that she didn't have something done with that cancer, that she was going to lose her leg or lose her life, one or the other. Anyhow, Dr. Connell found out about it, that my mother had this condition, and he had Mum go up to Kingston, and he was working on this new technique for treating cancer. And he had her come up, and I don't know how many injections she had, but she went up, and he injected her with whatever this insole was. And then she went up. She was scheduled to have surgery, and she went up to the hospital, and Dr. Bingham opened up her leg, and to his amazement and everybody else's, all there was a mass of fluid. There was no mass, there was no cancer, there was nothing. So they opened her up from the knee to the ankle, and they took out half of the tibia bone, I think it's the tibia bone, scraped the other bone, and sewed her back up again. And she was fine. I mean, she had a weak leg from then on. She didn't walk with a limp, but no cancer, nothing. Mm-hmm. It was a miracle. And she passed away a few years ago. She was 94 when she passed away.